I started SIFT, I still continue to do real estate.
What was the time when you said, like, this is the path for me?
There's always something new. And I know this is some of the fear that people have when hiring, even through, companies like yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remove the fear by having a task that you know that they can accomplish that is in the role that they're doing.
What you mentioned is spot on.
We have talent in those locations, and culture-wise, I love it.
Hey Tyler, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being on the show with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate you having me here. I'm excited.
The way I know you is I know you as the owner of the sales and marketing CRM, REISift. I also know you have a tracking company, and I know you have a very big community of dedicated, loyal entrepreneurs following you on Facebook. I know I'm part of that Facebook group as well, and people just like so supportive, and just you have a very loyal fan base, right? Community. Would you say this is an accurate description of you, or how would you describe yourself? What did I leave out?
If I was to say, who is Tyler, I ask myself that every single day. But as far as what Tyler has going on in general, real estate sales and marketing CRM is probably my main thing, I would say. Obviously, we have my rental portfolio, my real estate business that I run myself. And then, the community is what I'm most known for, in the space that we met each other in initially. Like you said, a lot of really diehard loyal fans over there. And that's kind of what we aim for is we want the best cream of the crop rather than necessarily the whole gallon. So.
Absolutely. And you're yourself are very, very much involved in that community. And it's not just you build that community and you let it, be by itself. Like, you're very active, answering questions, guiding people. I think that's a part of why you have this loyalty from the people in that network.
Yeah, I definitely go live a lot. I took a break there for a little bit, over the last few years. I was, just moving, dealing with, other stuff in life. And I kind of didn't have that extra energy in order to feel as though like, I need to get on live and do these things and stuff like that. And really over the last few months here, that's changed a lot.
How did you get into entrepreneurship? What was the time when you said, like, this is the path for me?
My first entrepreneurship item would have been, I had to have been like 7 maybe or something like that. Like if I was to think back, like what was the moment that I had the first inclination to make money? It was probably around 7 or so. We would go up and down the street, me and the neighbor kid, collecting soda cans, and then we'd take those soda cans, and my granddad was a welder. And so we would take him all the soda cans, and he would give us 25 cents to take the soda cans so that he could take them when he takes his scrap, aluminum. And so we would take the cans for 25 cents, and then he'd pay us 25 cents for them. So we'd make 50 cents per house to take the, soda cans. That was like my first like entrepreneurship type dealio. After that, when I was a teenager, I was probably just maybe turned a teen, 12, 13 years old or so. I remember YouTube was kind of like, I can't remember what year YouTube launched, but YouTube was out, and but I didn't really like delve into it much. It wasn't really big yet. And I was like, I really wish there was a place where like, geeks, could try to figure out how to like, build computers and do different things. And I wasn't as savvy as I am now with technology, but I ended up creating a website called My Geek Central, which was basically where I wanted to have like videos where people can post, I don't know, like geek stuff. I didn't really know at the time. Thinking back now, it was literally just HTML and CSS. It literally had no ability to do at all what I was wanting it to. But, that was my first coding something by myself and kind of building a website. And then I kind of like got more into like my military stuff I was doing and stuff like that in high school. And then I ended up joining the military. And then, most of that stuff kind of went away for a few years while I was waiting, going through my initial trainings and all that stuff. And then we were in Alaska, and a buddy of mine got into, one of those like Verve Energy. I think it was called Verve Energy at the time. And And basically it was an energy drink that you would go and you try to sell and get people to sign up under you and stuff like that kind of thing. And so I ended up joining that, and I think it was like $600 or something like that. I kind of wasted. And so anyway, I've always basically had and desire to be an entrepreneur. Actually, there was one other one I did that I actually started having some form of success on. It was a brand I created called Beginner CrossFit Workouts. And basically it was a website I created, and it was when Amazon had the ability for you to, it wasn't drop shipping like they have now. It was basically like you can get any product on Amazon, you can put on your website, and then you would make commissions off of it. I forget what exactly it was called, but I basically made a website where I would post daily CrossFit workouts on there, and then there was a store for purchasing CrossFit equipment. And I got to the point where we're doing like $100, $200 on average, a month or whatever, selling affiliate stuff. And then I had PCS, which is like moved again for the military, and that kind of went away. And then that kind of puts us to the point where, I was like, I need to figure something out, and so real estate ended up coming up, and then that's where, things started to really kind of transition, and that's kind of where I found out I was good at,
As far as I remember from one of our previous conversations, your parents were not in real estate. Your father had a trucking company, right? How did you go into real estate? What was that transition like?
So my dad was he's a recruiter. He calls himself a headhunter, I guess, if you were to say the job, a recruiter, right? He finds drivers for trucking companies. He did that my whole life. And of course that definitely, probably played a part in my ability to understand, can I be successful like outside of like a normal W-2, because he raised my family off of that, off of his own business. Right. But when I was younger, I always used to enjoy, construction and I was always like, it was a Tonka truck guy, or a kid and stuff like that. And so the idea of like construction, always fascinated me, and the idea of building and creating. I was always a tinker. And so, it was a combination of a couple things on why real estate. It was, what has made the most amount of millionaires? Okay, real estate. And the other one was I wanted wealth and not money. And so when I first got into real estate, it was trying to figure out how can I make my expenses lower by doing the house hacking thing. And so I was stationed in Minot, North Dakota at the time, and I was trying to find duplexes there that I could buy, rehab, and then, rent out one side. But when I was in Minot, it was a big oil boom going on. And so, rent was or properties were so high, rent wasn't high enough to compensate because there was so much demand for, it wasn't there. So I couldn't, there was no property that I found that I could buy the rental and then it would cover my mortgage or anything like that. And so I ended up referring 3 duplexes to a realtor. And he took me to a restaurant called Grizzlies in Return, basically, which was one of my favorite restaurants there. And so I never got into wholesaling. I never got into flipping or anything else like that there. I did end up buying a personal house there for the first time, and it was like in the middle of being new construction. And so I kind of learned some of the process there, and just ended up making, quote unquote, $1,000 at closing when I sold it, because the oil market ended up crashing when we left. It was booming when we entered, crashing when we left. And so we were really scared that, we were going to lose money. We bought the place for like $175,000. We ended up selling for like $176,500 or something like that. But, I put like a back fence in there. I heated the garage. I added all these convenient items throughout the time I was there, because I knew like what military spouses wanted and stuff like that, in order to buy a house. And so we got away with not losing money, quote unquote. And then I came down to Florida. And when I got to Florida, is when I started like learning more about, well, how can I get into real estate with no money? What are my options there? And that's where wholesaling and stuff started coming in. So it wasn't, I guess it was just a combination of just desire and knowing and reading that wealth was what real estate created that got me into real estate versus some other avenue, you know?
So because of your previous experience, that's what led you to create REISift, right? Well, plus you mentioned the coding experience. Like, were you yourself were involved in putting, I hear wonderful things about REISift. I know people who have tried cold calling before, but cold calling is not the same as it was 3 years ago. However, they recently started by using your method by being more niched and more precise in going after the right sellers, and they have seen very good success. So what was the reason that you wanted to do this? Like, why not just continue wholesaling or flipping and making money that way? Because most real estate millionaires didn't become millionaires running a CRM platform, right? They just did this. So why this path?
It all kind of started in my real estate company, right? So when I got started in that transition there, things I didn't cover was what was Tyler doing for his, day-to-day life, and that was working for the government. And so while working for the government, I was a hacker, let's just say, right? And so my job was very technical. And so that technical experience in parsing through and reading data, all day, and figuring out how do you manipulate the data to turn it into what you want it to do. It's really the job of a hacker, right? Figure out how do you understand something at such a level to where you can manipulate it to where you benefit better than whoever else is out there, right? And so when I decided to start marketing for real estate, the first thing that I did was sent mail. And after I sent my mail campaign for the first time, I didn't have no money for mail. I was $60,000-$80,000 in debt at the time. I didn't have credit. I had late notices. It was every month, because when you're traveling 50% of the year for the government and you're only making, the government at the time was only paying me right around $40,000 a year. Actually less than that. It was like 27 and some change plus per diems and stuff. I was only a GS4 at the time when this all started. And so when you travel, they give you a voucher card and stuff like that. But then the boys want to go out to drink, or they want to go eat every night. And these guys are contractors making, multiple six figures, and I'm not. But what am I going to do? Stay in a hotel? So every trip was always putting myself in more and more debt. And so I ended up basically using my government card to pay for some mail. And so what I ended up doing was buying this mail, which I just downloaded from ListSource, the list. I forget which postcard it was. It was a very simple postcard. It was just a white postcard, had some generous text on it, said "God bless" on it, and and then I kind of sent them all out. It was like 10,000 mailers or something like that is what I sent, and I went on a 3-week engagement in Southeastern California, and I had CallRail set up. I had these things going. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I sent out all this mail. Everyone says if you send at least this many, you're going to get a deal, right? I get back and I go to the post office. In the post office, mailbox or whatever, I open up the post office box and there's a little slip in there. I take the slip to the front and they just lift up a box of return mail and just set it on the table. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is I was like, wait, no, I delivered this to be sent. They're like, well, we did, and it's come back. And I was like, that seems counterintuitive to me, I pay for the stamps, I pay for everything. Anyway, I was pretty demoralized. I was like, there's no way. I didn't get any phone calls over those 3 weeks. I can't spend, another however much that was, $5,000 or whatever in postcards in order for this to happen again. Not get a deal. There's no way that's possible. So I took this stuff back to my office. I dumped out all the postcards and I just started looking at the data, the only thing I really knew how to do. And so looking at it, I realized data doesn't come perfect in real estate. Data is inputted manually. It all comes from a physical paper typed up by somebody somewhere at the title company, and then that gets submitted. And those anomalies and those problems, they end up being in the exports because all this data just gets pushed up and then pushed down. And so I learned that you have to clean the data. You got to make the data useful. And the more useful you make the data, the better the result's going to be. So input equals output. And so I had wrote a script basically that what I did is you ran this script and it parsed through CSV files and it looked for records to be complete. And if it was complete, it meant that it had a first name that contained more than one character, right? And then it had a last name, and then it didn't contain any trust or LLC information, and then it had a full property address, a full mailing address, and if it had that, then it's good for me to send mail. If it didn't have that, then I figured there's probably opportunity in that data because everybody else is probably getting return mail on that stuff too. So what I started doing is I started pulling specific lists, running it through my script, sending mail to the clean stuff, skip tracing the clean stuff, calling the clean stuff, and then the incomplete stuff, the stuff that was dirty, we just manually kind of cleaned up and then started running our own campaigns against those. And we noticed like most of our bigger deals were coming from that. And so we went from not having any deals, I was trying for like 6 months or something like that, before I kind of created this script and all this stuff kind of came to be, to that next quarter, then doing, 300,000 in revenue. And I was like, okay, so it was like 13 deals or something like that and 300 grand. And that was, September till, December really. So it was the last quarter of the year.
That's amazing.
And yeah. And so it was great. And we did that all with 1,100 properties. That was it. It wasn't a lot of data. And so I realized like a lot of this has to do with understanding the core of what's going on. And then of course, I was like, well, how do I scale this? And then we ended up ultimately doing that, adding in more data and, taking the same principles, but scaling it out with more data. And so I've ran the 7-figure, wholesaling business, the 1.3 is really kind of where we stay at, because anything above that, you start having to build out more systems than I want. And so I kind of stayed for a few years in the 800 to 1.2 range, expenses less than $60,000 a year, and just kind of floated there. In that last year there, where we made the 300 that year, I had went to a mastermind and I showed them this script that I did and how I made, got 13 deals, $300,000 or whatever off of this script. And someone was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. How do you do that? And I was like, well, I kind of explained it to him. He's like, you should maybe offer this to people. So then I created a Flask project and some other stuff. And I took out of that 300,000, I paid off my debt. And then I bought a bunch of camera equipment and a bunch of stuff that I knew that I would need for the next year. So I had some expenses and I had $30,000 left over after the fact. So I just blew 270 grand. And then that $30,000 went into a bank account, which ultimately became what REISift is now. So we bootstrapped it with the 30,000 and then it's kind of just grown since there. So, since I started Sift, I still continue to do real estate. I never stopped doing real estate. I still buy properties. I still market. I still flip houses. I got, like 5 projects going on right now. I build new construction. I close on 2 more lots to start 2 new houses, at the end of this month. And so I still do all those things. I just decided to laterally run this software company alongside it because I built it for my business and then other people, needed it. And I think it was bittersweet because, I was trying so hard. I mean, I wasted, I don't know how much money. My wife, she couldn't stand the fact that I had the personality where, she may still, I don't know. I think she probably feels like it's okay now, but the personality where there's always something new that I'm spending money on to try to make work. That was my early 20s. It was always like, okay, well, I got to buy this thing and try to make it happen. It was never really consistent any one thing. I really enjoyed the starting of the things. It was the entrepreneurial itch, that was happening. And none of them really got that much traction. And there was always be a reason why or whatever. And then, real estate, it was like it made sense to me. The problems made sense to me. The solutions were there. The life cycle of the deal was easy to understand. The entry was easy to do. The only thing you needed to do was make sure that you're ethical, right? And like I'm always been a pretty ethical person, and so it was pretty easy for me to use my morals and my ethics to do it in a good, just way. And so it really clicked with me. And then because of this tech background that I had, the things I always wanted was the software company, like that was the thing I always wanted when I was a kid. I mean, like I said, when I was 12 or whatever, I made that first website. And so it was really kind of awesome to just be able to see and have that, real estate being that thing that allowed the actual childhood, ambition to become into fruition, all because, you made the chance to, send the mail that you ultimately ended up, learning something from, right? And so why software company, and why not continue real estate? I guess I still do both, right? I don't do real estate 100%. It's my secondary, but that's because my software company has the higher exit potential, right? So I focus primarily on that, but I do get myself in the problems on real estate transactions still because I like to solve them. Yeah,
I understand. I love that, and that's amazing. It's very inspirational, and I didn't know about this journey. I didn't know about this part of your journey. That's awesome. So, right now you're doing real estate, you're doing the software, and you're still involved in the trucking business. And I'm guessing too, You can't be a one-man show to run this whole operations, right? You have a team behind you. Who do you have on the team? Who did you hire for the team to help you carry your vision for all three, so you can focus on needle moving activities?
This is something that I'm not great at. I am not. My hire process is very much I used to always tell people when they would come in to be interviewed, I was like, listen, I don't want you to think that I'm here to ask you a ton of questions. I'm actually here to just bullshit with you. And if we can have a good conversation, then I think that you're going to be a good fit. If we can't have a normal conversation and talk about our lives and what we did this week and what we did on the weekend, then I don't think that we're going to be a good part of our company because of our culture. And that's been good for me and also been very bad for me in that methodology. And that's where I think with you guys and with hire trained VA for specific roles, this is really great because you guys are really good at finding the people with the personalities, but I'm not good at that. And so, but in the beginning with real estate, my first hire was, her name was Julie. And I got Julie off of a ad on not LinkedIn.
Indeed.
One of the website, Indeed. Yeah, it was Indeed. So I did a post and I was like, well, who's going to want to work with me? You know what I mean? I don't have a bunch of money. It's got to be commission only. Who's going to believe in what I'm doing? And I was like, we'll just call it a startup, And so I posted it as a real estate investment startup company. And she was absolutely fantastic. She was great. We paid her 20% commission. And she made a lot of money in the 3 months that initially that we were in that first 3 months that she was hired in. When I ended up having the mail come back, I paused the company for 4 months or something like that, I want to say, and then I reactivated it after I set up every single process, which people are really fortunate now because I've already set all those up for them, especially in the SIFT community. We already have all those processes. We have them documented. There's trainings. You don't got to worry about it or anything. But I ended up creating a Google website. On that Google website, I basically broke the company down into 4 different processes: marketing, administration, sales, and there's one more. I can't remember, but anyway, there's 4 sections, and each section basically had to start here. And it was this is your job, and this is your job, this is your job. How to pull the list. What do you do with the list? How do we upload it to our Python script, that I had created? How do we send the mail? How do we skip trace? How do we literally everything? I broke down and I did a mind map on what are all the facets of the business. Because if I'm going to be traveling 50% a year for the government, I don't have time to be doing these other things. Some people say they don't have time I was traveling 50% of the year. I was in a skiff 16 hours a day when I was home, which, means you don't get your phone on you. And so like, it was really important to me that if I was going to be spending my money, that I could have somebody to answer the phone calls and do the thing. And so the person, that first hire, I knew going to be the most critical hire that I made. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to hire them and have them build the business for me. I was going to have everything structured in place, and I was going to give them something that they could carry, right? And then I was going to give them good commissions off of that. And so that's what I did. And so I had set it all up, and then I hired Julie. I met her at the Starbucks in Fort Walton Beach, and we sat down. I said, "This is what I got going on. This is what I've closed so far. This is what I know the potential is. I've documented all these things. This is what I need you to do. I need you to call these phone numbers. I need you to go out on appointments. I'm going to teach you how to analyze deals, but I'm going to help you with that. That's something I can help you do. And when you go out on appointments, I'll tell you what to tell them." And she was like, I don't know, she was like maybe 4'10", and she had like this pixie haircut, she was just a little doll, and so like, she like slaughtered them, like she just locked up contracts really, really easy. It was really remarkable, actually. And so anyway, I hired her. And then, after a few weeks, I realized that she really needed support. And so then I hired my first VA. Her name was Regine, who ironically worked in REISift for the last like few years as well. She's been with me for how many years has it been? 2017 for 7 years.
My daughter was born in 2017. So yeah, that's like 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a while. And so she ended up doing all the administrative stuff. So I had her make sure that Julie was supported with the data that she needed, and that all the stuff on the side whenever the, contracts needed uploaded to a website, all those things. And so we ran off of 3 people for a long time until I brought on my partner, Jake. When SIF started getting a lot of traction, I brought Jake on as a partner to handle all the dispo stuff kind of side of the business. And then we continued like that for a while. Okay, so that was the real estate side. And now on the real estate side, it's me still. I have a lead manager, I have a data person, and I have a caller. And so we keep it typically around 4 or 5 people. And so we keep that super lean. And then now moving over to the kind of the real estate or the REI software side, on this front, it's kind of mixed, right? The most critical person for me was initially a executive assistant. Like when things started getting really busy, this was the first non-engineer hire that really changed everything. Her name is Christina. And so she was my first hire. I hired her from, I can't remember the name of the company, but basically a company like Hire Train VA. But they, hire US based people as well that work from home. And so I hired her from there. And I mean, it was like a perfect fit. They did a really extensive, what is your personality test? What is her personality test type deal? And they matched us and paired us very well. And she ultimately handled a lot of the operations things and making sure things were getting done behind the scenes, while I could focus on vision and where does the product need to go and those types of things. And outside of that, we didn't hire a success team or any of these other people in order to start making those decisions for a couple more years. I just wanted to be the person in all those conversations and having all those calls so that I understood more about the direction that the product needed to go, the problems users were having, and things like that. And, and then, we ended up getting to the point where we scaled and we hired like more, like a whole customer success team, even more support people and things like that. But, this last year, I felt like there was just so much disconnect between people. It was like people weren't quite understanding why they were here and stuff like that. And ultimately, we ended up scaling back down to a team of on the SIFT side, I think we're a team of 11 or 12 or something like that. And so I've learned that I kind of really like that on the real estate side, like the 5 people team kind of size company. I think you can easily do 8 to 1.2 million a year, or even multiple 6-figure or multiple 7 figures off of a 5 to 6 person team. We have users, doing it off of, 4 people teams. And, yeah. And so on the trucking side, I have, some callers there. And then we have our recruiters, but there's not too much like actual structure there people wise, there's not any, leadership or anything. There's just like us. And so most of it's not at all organized. Most of it's me running around with my head cut off. And then, my, new administrative, assistant, or EA, she's just kind of always just pinging the shit out of me saying, hey, you need to get this done. You need to get this done. Right. And that's kind of how I function right now is, I'm the child, and they're the adults, and I just need to be pointed in the right direction. And so that's it.
That's exactly what a great EA does. That's exactly what it is. So she's doing a fantastic job. I like what you said about keeping the team small. I think it was Russell Brunson or maybe Dan Kennedy who said that you don't need a team of more than 7 people, because if you have a team that's more than 7 people, it's like your job is going to be managing those people and not managing your business, not running a business. So keep it lean and mean, right? Lean and focused. You can easily, and actually I found out that I also at some point I scaled back on my own team. And the reason was we wanted to be more focused, but also what I realized is that at some point, either the company we grow, right? We're not stagnant. So at some point the company outgrew the capacity of those people. So some people on my team didn't grow at the same pace as the company did, and we had to let them go. So scaling back, it doesn't necessarily mean it's just, financial distress, or not always the case.
Right.
But a lot of the times it's just like, we need better talent. For the point where we are right now, we need different caliber of people. So just operating leaner and definitely stronger.
Yeah, and I think there's reflection too sometimes where maybe we hire because, like real estate wholesalers do this pretty often, where they find the problem that's right in front of them, they think the source is that somebody else needs to be doing it. And so you end up hiring somebody, and then the problem gets solved, and then you realize that you really didn't need a person in that position. What you needed a better process. And so you get to the point where you end up doing that a few times, and now you have like, an extra, say $200,000 a year you're paying in salaries, just to realize that like they actually aren't doing much at all in your company. And so they either need to find something to do to prove their value to the company, or you need to get rid of them so that you can maintain, to have even higher margins. And unless we can find another place for them. And so what I always think about now before I hire somebody is there like a consultant that I can hire for $5 or $10,000 to figure this problem out first, and then see if it's a process problem? Do I already have something we're doing over here to where if I just added and tweak the process, that this one person that's doing something over here can also maintain that same task without it being like this extra big burden on them? Or how do we get back to the basics and try to keep everything always as to the basics as possible, rather than just like hiring people just to hire people, so that this person doesn't have to do that task? So I like to have more unicorns in the company than anything, because I want someone who's not just like, that's the only thing that I do is I get on calls. I'm only a salesperson, which maybe in sales roles that's needed possibly. That's probably the only exception actually, now that I just said that I would think that I would want that person. Right. But yeah, that's probably like, I've done that a few times in a few different quarters where it was like, we need to get this stuff done. And so we need labor, when I should have probably just, maybe hired somebody just for that like gap in time, rather than a W-2 employee,
And you work with both local people and international virtual assistants. What's it like building a culture with remote employees and local? Do you feel like you can build a cohesive team culture no matter where people are located?
So we're international between virtual, what people would consider virtual assistants, in the, between Philippines, Egypt, Mexico, these types of countries, Colombia, where the dollar goes much further. We typically are using them for skill sets in like automation tasks, support chat stuff. We're really careful on these. We want to make sure that we find the talent, right? I don't really care necessarily where they're located. I don't really care necessarily how much they cost. I hire based off of like what your talent is. And so where we've got caught up, especially early on, where I got caught up is like I would do it the opposite way. I would think, well, where is it that I can afford somebody? And then I'll try to find if their talent is there, and that doesn't always mix as well, because now you're thinking you're looking at a human in a different way than I think that we should be looking at it. Like it's like the idea of like having remote workers rather than saying, hey, yeah, they're my Philippine VA, kind of like mindset. And so anyway, so we have talent in those locations, and they're fantastic and crucial to kind of like the glue that keeps things together, and culture wise, I love it because I'm like you'll notice in the SIF community, like we're a very diverse community. We're not really just like one type of culture, or one type of background. Like there's from all walks of life, skins, races, all that kind of stuff. Like we're just all over the place. And that's really, really awesome compared to in a lot of other, you look at some, probably the only like one common denominator in our community versus other communities. If you were to say like, hey, this is like what everyone follows, is that we all believe that you don't have any excuses and that we're really like dedicated. Other than that, everybody else is kind of all over the place. And so that same culture that we have in the SIF community, we kind of bring into the company. Like we don't really care where you're from or anything like that. I just care about like, can you pass the vibe check, which is, again, bit me in the foot. But like when you onboard into our company, it actually like there's like a part in there that says like, you need to watch an episode of South Park. And if you're okay with what happens in South Park, then you should consider continuing to work with us. Like we want to make sure that like we're bringing in the right people that meet the culture and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out. I mean, we have a few in Brazil. That's like our, if we were to say like, hey, we're in two different countries, it would be US based and Brazil based offices. And so, Brazil has been a really fun country to kind of learn and be a part of that culture, because they're also very diverse because of how, Brazil was founded. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I've really loved the opportunity just to be able to sit and talk with, them and what they got going on and what they do and what their language means, and trying to learn and speak Portuguese, and same thing with Tagalog and everything. I don't know. I really enjoy listening to people's stories. Like we talk about food a lot because we're all eating different food. My VAs that are in Egypt, I talk with them a lot about food because they are always doing that. We talk a lot about like conspiracy theories and, the pyramids with them, just a lot of stuff, and it's just kind of all over the place when the war started over in Palestine and stuff like that. Like I talked to the Egyptians a lot about that and what are their beliefs, because I don't really know. In the US, you don't really learn too much about like, okay, what you think based off of, biblical stuff and everything else like that, but you really have no idea what's taught and brought up in Egypt, in that region in regards to those types of things. And so, in some situations, I think companies, they tiptoe around asking and speaking certain questions because of because there's that cultural difference, and it may be construed as something that they could get sued for if they have the conversation, or because someone gets upset or their feelings aren't right. And so we just remove that from the table on the onboarding process and say, this is an open, cultural, welcoming company. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're not going to, suppress our thoughts because we're curious about, what is your barbecues like versus what are my barbecues like, because I want to go to your barbecue because I want to taste your food, So I don't know. It's been a really interesting thing that I never ever, when I was younger, thought I'd ever be dealing with or, understanding is how to kind of cross that cultural communication barrier. But I have got myself into situations where culturally there was lack of phrasing that didn't, translate well. But we worked ourselves through it.
That's awesome. I love it. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they treat their VAs as freelancers rather than as important part of their team. And I mean, I guess they would probably treat even their local employees the same. But what you mentioned is spot on. I mean, just treat them like people. Everybody wants a place where they belong. Everybody wants like that. That's what fosters loyalty. That's what fosters, that's what makes you happy when you go to work, because nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to do a bad job at their work, show up badly. People want a place where they belong. So I've been trying to, in this show as well, I have a lot of solo episodes when I talk about how to build a culture, how to have what kind of meetings to have. Don't just have like meetings where you talk about business problems. Have one-on-one meetings. Just get to know them better. Get to know what they're like. So I love what you said about the culture, and you're setting the expectations right from the get-go, right from the beginning. I hope those who listen, if they haven't had maybe a lot of success with hiring people either locally or internationally, maybe that could be one golden nugget that they can get. Just welcome them.
Yeah.
Welcome to make them part of a team.
Yeah, it's important, and core values are really big with that too, because you kind of have, if you don't have like the good company core values and what people are striving to kind of represent themselves within your company in the different months of the year and kind of foster that and reward that, it also makes it really difficult to kind of build good culture, because you kind of don't have like a barometer besides like cooler talk to create culture, right? And so culturally, there's two kind of different sides of it. There is the company culture as far as expectations and performance, and there's company culture as far as like how do we communicate with each other and what's acceptable, and so both of those are important. And so we use core values to make sure that we keep aligned with the culture and our expectations and our work ethic. And then we use the cooler talk, as our way to understand how can we talk with each other and build the fun part of the business rather than some of this stuff. And how do you combine those two together to make it to where projects become fun by having the cooler talk kind of landscape with let's go build a nationwide map inside of SIFT. Like how can we create that? Because one thing, like once you start working in a job, I think back, like when I think back to college and stuff like that, or even when I was in, the military, and we would have like a project we need to complete, we all come together and it would be fun. You know what I mean? Like your college project, when you were working on creating that thing for against your competition and whoever got a better grade, because they had, I don't remember, I forget what one I had. I think we had like a one in college where it was like in geography or something, where we created like a state map, and then we had like different animals, different on states and stuff, and we all had different parts that we were a role in, and that was fun back then when I was a teenager. And then I found myself getting where why is it whenever I go to work on a project, in the company, why do I see and why do I feel as though people don't have that same sort of like excitement or enthusiasticness of the project itself? And so that was something I was tackling really heavily last year. And what I found that it really was the desire to combine those two components, right? The work ethic and why we're here, along with the cooler talk, because everyone kept wanting to just do the cooler talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of core values. Yeah. So when we hire people, we put our core values in the job ad, right in the job ad. And we actually say, if you don't see yourself in these values, do not apply. We would not get along. So it's very important to find your tribe, find your people. Now, out of those people who are still on the fence, maybe, or still afraid to hire virtually because of whatever reasons, how would you say this experience has been for you? I guess I'm trying to get like, what kind of concerns did you have to go over, or did you have to get over to make that hire that worked for you, especially hiring internationally?
I think one of the first concerns that people have is they're going to get ripped off, you know what I mean, by the person. And, one of the big concerns being am I going to get ripped off? Is like, is this person going to work in like two different companies at once? Am I going to get like their full intention, things like that. And so I think that's like the first like thought probably they have. And then the second thought is, am I going to hire somebody that's ultimately going to like not work out, because I hired the wrong person? And so, my best recommendation there is to just go, straight through, somebody who already does that all the time, like hire a trained VA or you guys have like a lot of resources that you can, I know you guys teach people how to do it on their own too, right? So, if you're going to do it on your own and cause you want to learn how to do it or whatever, you want to interview a ton of candidates before you make a decision. Even if you think you found the right person, continue to interview people, because you need to understand what the bad person is in order to really understand what the good person is. And you don't know who the bad person is until you've interviewed a lot of more people. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you have a bad person, but there's like the obvious bad people, and then there's like the ability for you to start learning when people are kind of BSing you on across the table to get a job. And that's like a skill set that you have to kind of work through. And it's a lot more difficult when you're just doing it over a camera rather than sitting face to face, because you can't see like their hands, their feet, their fingers, fidgeting, and the typical cues that you would want to see. My other thing is, and this is what I do, like when I hire people with you guys, is I don't do interviews with people personally. Like I let you guys interview and find the person. If you're going to come to me, I just throw them right on the dialer or doing the task that it is that I need them to do. And I don't give them any guidance. I just want to see, how do you handle being given something without, any sort of, guidance? What can you take from something that's nothing? And, that's just because like I'm really looking for the person who I can have for a long time. And I know I'm going to have them for a long time if I find that person. But, I don't think that there should be any fear with hiring anybody internationally, remotely, whether it be remotely internal to the United States or remotely internationally. But the skill set being understanding their personality, right? Like do the personality test, understand what it is the role that you're trying to do, and understand what personality traits fit with that. And then if you understand that, you can find the right person with those personalities, and then you got to put them through a task. If you don't put them through a task, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You really got to do that. I learned a big one actually this year. I spent multiple six-figure dollar bills on a project to ultimately have to scrap it. And I hired out a source, and so that source was bringing talent. And what I didn't do is I didn't think to source the source's talent in the project. And so I ended up having it was just terrible. You don't think about that because you're thinking that the source has the talent. And that that they're going to do their job and making sure that they're taking care of you because you're giving them money, right? And I know this is some of the fear that people have when hiring, even through companies like yours. Like, I'm going to give them this money, and then they're going to give me somebody, and they're just going to run away with my money, and then they're just going to give me somebody, because that's a really common problem in the industry. And the way to solve that is, again, just give the tasker, right? And you guys do a really amazing job because you literally send people the interviews, you send people the questionnaires, you send people all the things needed to make a choice on who they want to interview. And then once I'm like, yeah, I want to interview that person, I give them the task. First, I see, can I BS with you? And then I give them the task, right? And then they do the thing. And Andy's somebody that we hired from you guys early last year, maybe it was. I don't know if you remember. It was July 10th, actually. It was my birthday when we had the interview with him. I can't remember which one of your team members was on the call with me, but we were at an Airbnb, and I was in the back pool area, and I just ended up saying, hey, here's a list, here's a login. I'm going to be sitting here. I'm in the pool. You go ahead and start making some cold calls. I think we have an hour. I checked with your team member. She's like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I mean, you can go do whatever you want to do or whatever, but he's just going to sit here and call for an hour if you're cool with that. And so he sat there and cold call for a year or for an hour. And there's like people that he spoke to on that one that in the last couple months have actually converted. And I thought that was really funny because
so cool.
He didn't really know what the heck was going on back then. Like, cause he was just clicking it. So the numbers, like, the messages were in the wrong location, and like the records weren't jacked up. I'm like, why did this never get caught before? And then I looked back, I was like, oh, it was Andy, like on July 10th and 11th, and so, but the conversations worked and it all, it all worked out at the end. But, anyway, so remove the fear by having a task that that they can accomplish that is in the role that they're doing. Whether that's filling out an Excel document, give them a website, give them an Excel document and say, hey, I need this taken care of. You're free to use ChatGPT only in this part. That's another big one right now. Any administrative people, don't make sure they know how to do the job, not just let technology do the job for them, because then you're lacking on the critical thinking skills that are needed. Anyway, easiest thing is hand off a lot of the parts that you're probably not good at, which is figuring out who is the right personality, and focus on the parts that you are good at, which is what is the task that needs to get done, and then pair that with a company that can do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And you're 100% right. Always put people to a task. You never know how good someone is until you actually work with them. And that's something we're doing now. For every role that we hire, we put them to a test, but then we give you the freedom to like put them to any test that you want. Like what you said, call for an hour.
Yeah.
And also we take our VAs through a very tough screening process, so tough that the majority of people actually bail. We give feedback that your process was too tough. I was like, good. I don't want you here. I want people who have the resilience. Yeah. And I go to my team. My team is like, we're losing people because they don't complete the process. And I asked them, would you have completed the process? And she said, yeah, absolutely. No problem. Would you have completed the process? And someone says, oh, I worked for Royal Caribbean, for example, right? She worked on a cruise ship. Like, this is nothing compared to that. Yeah, no problem. It's like, you see, and you're like the best people. Best people, they're not afraid of challenges. They're not afraid of obstacles. They actually, they roll up their sleeve and say, I'm going to show you what I can do, right? So they take a lot of pride in that. So, I'm very proud of how my team came up with the ideas. Like, we need to be tougher and like there's a ton of VA hiring companies out there. We want to make sure we get the best. So, Tyler, I want to be respectful of your time. I do have a couple of questions. We call this asking for a friend. Okay. So a couple of questions just to get to know you a little bit better from a personal point of view, even though I think we've already, already learned so much about you. Okay. What are 3 books that impacted you the most?
I'm going to give a series first. The Go Giver series is my favorite series, period. It's an amazing series. The book that I would say, if someone was to ask me like, hey, Tyler, what book do you carry around with you? And what, like, it's literally in the glove compartment of my truck. It's called The 12 Pillars. That is definitely an amazing book. It basically tells a story of a man who's got a child, he's got a wife at home, and, he's got a car that breaks down, and this old man gives him, a gas can, and then there's his house that has 12 pillars, a beautiful home, and this old man is he thinks he's the gardener, and this gardener keeps telling him a story of how, he has 12 pillars because he's 12 pillars of life, and the book's basically teaching him what each pillar of life is. And it's like my alignment book, if you will. It's like the book that I go to say, hey, I'm feeling kind of stressed out. I'm feeling like I got a lot of shit going on. I feel like maybe I'm not doing things as good as I could be or whatever. I read the 12 pillars, and then it kind of gets me back aligned. That'd be hard to kind of choose like my third most favorite. Oh, Vivid Vision. That would be one. That's a good one.
That sounds
we'll say
good.
That. Vivid Vision. A lot of it's probably like I read a lot of stuff that's more helping my mindset necessarily than how to do things.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. What kind of one piece of advice you could give your younger self, what would it be? I
would probably give the advice that my granddad gave me when I was a kid, that I've kind of continued to live by. But and for quite a few years there, I let me pick and choose when to go buy it, and that was wait a day. That was his phrase.
Wait a day.
Yeah. Yep.
I love it. Okay. And what do you want your legacy to be?
I would want my legacy to be like what my focus has been. It's probably changed, but right now, if I was to think like what do I want to be remembered by, because that's kind of what I think legacy is more what do you want to be remembered by. I don't really care who I'm remembered by. I just want to be remembered by my children. That's something that I want the memories of them with me to as much as possible try to pull it away from that memory being me, like, and work as much as possible. I want them to feel the benefits of the work and efforts that I do, but I don't want them to have to think that that's the only thing that I did. So trying to make sure that you kind of work to plant the seed memories that what you want them to be. That's been something that when I think back, I'm like, okay, I got like all these seed memories. Even me thinking back of me and my children, I'm like, man, I remember like the second birthday, but I don't remember the birthday. I don't remember the moments. What I do remember is the problems that were around that time. And I hate that the human mind works in the way where your good thoughts can be overwritten by the powerful thought that wants to take over. And so, I'm just super conscious about that in the people that I'm trying to surround myself with, or that do facilitate themselves with me, is how do I have the lasting memory be the memory I want it to be? That's a hard one. So,
I love it.
Just want to be thought of as a good guy, a guy that didn't take advantage of people and helped out as much as I can. And I gave more to them than I would take from them. So
this is so powerful. Thank you so much. Last question. Where can people find out more about you?
Hit me up. You can go to Instagram. I'm not really good at being like out there anymore besides like in the SIFT community. But you can go to the REISift Mastermind community on Facebook. You can hit me up on Instagram, Tyler Austin Original. TylerAustin.com is my website. But other than that, just ping me, find me online, Google my name. I'm there. No, I'm kidding.
I'll make sure to leave all the links in the description. Tyler, it's been an amazing time here spending with you, and thank you so much for the wisdom, for the know-how, for just being you, and I really respect you and I appreciate everything you do, and I'm so happy that we crossed our paths and we get to work together, and I'm just really thankful for that, and thank you for finding the time to be on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me. I love learning more about myself, trying to express myself, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was enjoyable.
That's awesome.